Chico and the Man will not be presented this evening, and the Rockford Files will be seen 1 hour later than normal, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Our report details how advertising through television transforms strangers to your product into acquaintances, and acquaintances into friends, and friends into customers. You could almost say, as a result, that television puts into every living room a selling machine.
Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Kinescope, our look at the early days of the golden age of television. John Suntress here, Gabe Hardman here, Jeff Parker here, and it's going to be fun tonight, boys, because we're talking about Boris Karloff and his many roles.
Oh, hey, John, no, you do a better Boris Karloff than that.
I don't know what else.
See, I gave him shit about Boris Karloff.
Come on, man.
Last week, I gave John shit about it, and but he hadn't added in the lisp yet. So this is elevated, I think.
Yes, I suppose so. I don't know. I can't get low enough. Do it, Parker, if you can do it better.
Anybody can do it better. You're doing what's his name?
Bobby Pickett, the Monster Mash.
Bobby
I was watching late
what's the guy from the cereal?
Frankenberry.
Yeah, Frankenberry.
Yes, I was always mad at Blueberry. He always interfered with my milk.
I remember years ago at Comic-Con, Karloff's daughter was
Sarah
set up somewhere doing a thing, meeting people, and a friend told me, like, "Hey, Boris Karloff's daughter." Was like, and I said, "Yeah, I couldn't help it." Like, go over there and said, "I knew your father." Please go be the asshole who does a Boris Karloff imitation in front of her, but you wouldn't take me up on it. But which one are we talking about first?
We're not doing a show, right? This isn't real. Like this is just a bunch of bullshit, right? Like no, we're professionals here. We're professional podcasters. We got to get this thing on track.
That's an oxymoron, but go on.
The Elgin Hour. Elgin
Hour. Yeah, I mean we're talking obviously about Boris Karloff's live TV work here, and and a couple of different things. This an episode of the Elgin Hour called "The Sting of Death" that was like one of the first season of this show, and a couple other things. I mean, I think at least I watched the Lark, which is a Joan of Arc play that that he's in. He's actually quite good in. Has an amazing cast.
Amazing.
We'll get to it. But and also, John, did you watch the
Arsenic and Old Lace?
Arsenic and Old Lace. Yeah, TV
and again, an amazing cast.
Right.
Absolutely.
Which Karloff starred in on stage, but not the film version. So so I mean, I think that what are we talking? I mean, obviously, we should talk about the Elgenauer one first. So
because if I may, before we get into
get into it. Yeah,
before because I'll let Jeff handle the plot. But what I love about the Elgenauer is it's sponsored by Elgin Watches. Elgin Watches was a huge watch manufacturer here in suburban Chicago. In fact, in the town of Elgin, Illinois, and it still very much represents the watch years. I don't know if Elgin is still a line or not. I believe it isn't. But it certainly was like one of the fashionable. It wasn't Timex. It really was the high-end watches of that era. And I'm always fascinated by big and small companies that put on television shows, especially in this era. So the Elgenauer only lasted about a season or so. And this is one of the episodes. And Parker, tell us about the episode.
Well, it's nice because they don't just hammer us with watch commercials throughout the thing. They get it in, get out of the way. I really appreciated that. I'm not sitting there looking at a Westinghouse stove all the time. So
that's true. There was a little less
endeared me to it. It is based on the short story, A Taste for Honey. And I'm sorry, I forgot who the writer of that was. It is not a Sherlock Holmes story, even though they call Karloff's character Mr. Mycroft. And he even says the game's afoot at one point and puts a meerschaum pipe in his mouth. They're just having a little fun with that bit of it.
Gerald Hurd is the name of the author.
Okay.
Story? Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, they're just clearly they're just thinking like, well, just for fun, let's just say, just to pull people in, Karloff should have played Sherlock Holmes. So I think that's just a kind of big in joke or something. But
but I mean, even the novel was considered. I mean, like from what I read, the novel was considered a sort of pastiche. An old Sherlock Holmes pastiche. Obviously, he's named Mycroft, but he's named Mr. Mycroft. So I mean, Mycroft is Mycroft Holmes, right? So
are you inferring that the character is kind of a pastiche on Holmes? I realize that Holmes, according to canon, retires to Sussex to beekeep, and we even saw a recent Ian McKellen film that depicted that era.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that movie.
Fun movie.
But it's just if you count non-Doyle things as Holmes. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just like it's not supposed to. It's not like those Nicholas Meyer books where he's literally writing Sherlock Holmes. It's it's like a light pastiche that's supposed to suggest that he's a Holmes, like maybe he's Sherlock Holmes kind of.
And though this is directed by Daniel Petrie, it's also not Raisin in the Sun.
Well said, well played.
How
about also? I mean, I'd love to see Hermione Gingold tearing up the scenery.
She is really chewing some scenery hard. It's great. Well, but so is Robert Fleming playing Silchester, the put upon fop who loves honey.
Yes. And his taste for honey leads him into this dark underworld of evil apiaries. And
yes, I suppose I've added a special ingredient to the bees' work.
And so Mr. Mycroft is it opens with Karloff pottering around in his garden, and his dog gets killed by bees. That's a strong open.
Yeah, you can't argue. I almost checked out right there.
No dogs were harmed during
this. It's actually this is the original John Wick, by the way.
Yes.
And we can prove it by the end of the episode.
Although, since it's live TV, there was no dog in this, right? There's just the sound of a dog that presumably is below camera height. So,
and then he wraps it up and he picks up a slightly dog-shaped thing.
Yeah.
In a
like a lamp.
In a little blanket. And you felt, and I don't know if you did, but I certainly imagined what I thought the dog looked like.
Yes.
I thought it was like a little, like long hair black terrier sort of dog. Sort of like,
I'll go with terrier, but I did not picture black fur. I don't know. I mean, like, I felt like it was a little.
Oh, that's the great. We got theater of the mind going. I love it. That's John's specialty.
Exactly. I'm such a great actor. I made you imagine what the dog looked like. Yes.
Yeah. And
I know now it's becoming Don
immediately
Pardo.
Karloff goes into as soon as he meets anybody.
But,
what?
I'm sorry. I was making fun of my own imitation there. I'm starting to sound like Don Pardo rather than Boris Karloff.
You're gonna be like Rich Little. You're gonna have that Rich Little confluence where they all come together into one indistinguishable imitation.
Continue. I'm sorry.
It's like in 10 years, that's where it's going. I can tell you. It's immediately he knows something's up because bees killing his dog. That's not right. Everybody's crazy about what's that character's name? Who's the bee?
Oh,
the bee guy.
I gotta look up the cast.
Mr. Hargrove. Sorry.
Thank you,
Mr.
I
Hargrove.
have my glasses on, and so
It's like a bad
Hargrove's
pipe,
the extremely pleasant guy who's always grimacing super hard at everyone, out there fooling around with his bees.
Excuse me.
This is a little bit of a problem I have with this. If you're some sort of jerk who's breeding killer bees,
you're the beekeeper of the area,
yeah, and the only like all the other beekeepers are going out of business because your bees are going over there and beating the shit out of them. Like, what? Play it down a little bit, right? Like maybe just maybe play it like what? I don't know what you're talking about, but let's have a cup of coffee instead of like, I'm evil. Why do you suspect me?
Glare. Okay, yeah, setting himself up as the perfect guy. Oh, killed by bees. Well, that couldn't be anything to do with me. Yeah, this is a really fun. This is such a fun role for Karloff. I feel like
I agree. Absolutely. I agree
because while at the end he does kind of delve back into dark Karloff, really briefly. He's getting to really be eloquent and a little hammy and fun, and he's clearly having the time of his life there. And doing great for live, which you'd expect him to be really good at it because he's a stage guy.
Yeah. I mean, this is also kind of a period for Karloff where he was a little bit, like the kind of horror movies that, that he was known for were not so popular for a while. And, and sort of, in the 50s, it was giant bugs and shit. And and until Hammer came in and stuff, there was not that kind of gothic-y feeling stuff that he was known for as much. So this is a period where he does end up taking different kinds of roles, and he's in he's in the stage production of The Lark, for the whole run of it, like the thing we're going to talk about later, which is not a horror role in any way. And so, I think that this is like even though this is a little bit more like he's doing things that are kind of all over the place. He doesn't have like the kind of focused horror career that he did earlier. I don't know whether he was more into it or not, but it seemed like he had a more diverse, set of roles in this mid-50s area.
Absolutely. And then also there were film shows in this era as well that he did. And I just want to acknowledge him briefly, like Colonel March of Scotland Yard, where he was very much a detective, obviously, hence the title, with an eye patch. So that's extra acting, obviously.
Oh, good. Yeah. Or less acting. It's, like.
But it was a very well received syndicated show that played very well internationally. It was a British production, kind of like the Invisible Man, British television.
Oh, show, yeah.
And how that made it over here. I'm assuming, and also Robin Hood and things like that from the 50s. So, it was a good steady gig. And like you say, this period really is kind of between the Universal movies and even the other stuff that he did. And then obviously coming back to horror in the Corman movies, the AIP movies.
Yeah. And, kind of closing it out, although it wasn't actually his last movie, with Peter Bogdanovich's Targets. So,
great movie.
Which is a great movie. It really is a great movie. But yeah, should we mention that Boris Karloff played Frankenstein? Does that?
In 1970. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
That fantastic film.
Yes,
that was gross with the eyeballs in the jar.
That's really what we know him for, I guess.
Primarily, yes.
obviously we mainly know him because he says what I think we all agreed was our favorite all-time line of any movie, "We Belong Dead."
Right. Yes. And also, I gotta say that it was kind of like fortuitous that this week on Shudder, the horror streamer, they dropped a new documentary about Karloff. So that was kind of like some instant, easy research for this.
Cool.
I mean, it's worth the watch. It has good people in it. It's Guillermo del Toro and Corman, and like they talk to some good people. There's some good content in it for the most part. The quality of the writing and the narration is good. The quality of the production, on the other hand, is not. And it's like it is kind of a shockingly cheap thing. On the other hand, okay, look, I don't want to. If whoever painted these paintings that's in this movie, in this documentary, is out there and listening to this, I'm apologizing right now. But there are some of the most amateurish, like these paintings that are used as sort of bumpers that are paintings of of Karloff in different roles, and they're also then like every character, every talking head is interviewed, with like green screen behind them, and they drop in very raggedly drop in stuff behind them, and a lot of them are these paintings. These paintings are, I'm assuming, that the 12-year-old son of the director did these paintings. Like, they are so amateurish that I cannot believe that they're like a very talented, very young person did them.
Interesting.
I couldn't get past that, but but there is good stuff in the documentary, and it's worth a watch. And I'm not knocking the whole thing. I think that it's, informationally it's good. And certainly,
were they going on location to interview people, or were they bringing everybody into the same place?
For the most part, I think they were bringing them into the same place. But like, who needs to spend their time more? The people making the cheap documentary, or Guillermo del Toro, or Roger Corman, or whoever? Just go to their office and spend a tiny bit of time lighting it nicely. Cool. Yeah.
How's Corman looking these days?
He seems all right. I mean, I don't know when this interview is from. It's probably from a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I mean, not that long ago, though. I mean, he's an elderly guy, and I've heard him on podcasts more recently, too. And he certainly has all of his stories that he tells, but he's still with it, like that guy, just keeps going.
Oh my God. That should, the next podcast we're doing, of course, is the Roger Corman podcast. There's no question.
Look, dude, don't tempt me, because I would love that. Here's why. I'm going to just stop the podcast for a second here and talk about why that's a good idea. Like, it's similar to how we did the Outer Limits thing, our previous podcast. There are just so many tendrils of of where Hollywood is going in those Corman movies. All of those, so many, including Peter Bogdanovich and Scorsese and all these people, Coppola, all these people, all the people who create it would be like a prequel podcast to my podcast called Old New Hollywood about the 70s, right? About all those 70s movies. So anyway, we can go back to the regular podcast now.
All right. Now, you want to transition this Corman cast and wow, this is going to be great.
Should we transition to The Leaf?
Well, this felt fun because it also took me back to. I felt like we were watching that Outer Limits again, where the bees.
Yes, I was thinking about that too. Yeah,
with the queen,
where the bees turned their queen into a human to seduce the beekeeper.
Yep.
But no one got seduced in this, and also the Mr. Silchester again, Fleming. He does some weird kind of whacked out thing, like. There's a little side where he's just had so much honey, he's forgot what day it is.
What was that? I'm actually a little unclear what was happening at that point, because I thought we were going someplace with this idea that
I felt like he was kind of juicing up for time or something somewhere in the middle of the story. Like they're like, Boris is using the bathroom. Do a bit or something.
Yeah, right.
So he kind of
do a bit.
Stretch. Yeah,
But okay, then Boris comes back in, solves, tells him he figures out what's up. A lot of stuff happens off screen as you would expect it. Like apparently, while Silchester was getting attacked by bees, because this guy just hates people at random, and who buy from him. It just this confounding plot.
It is. Look, this guy should be happy. He's the only one who can sell any honey in the fucking
And he's killing
what
off
do you
his
call it?
customers.
The area, why is this guy so angry?
Also, why does Boris Karloff, who is not a beekeeper in this, because he says he's thought about beekeeping, but he has a smoker as if he were a beekeeper and comes in, smokes the place, saves the guy's life. And then the guy kind of turns into he goes from this really arrogant guy to this shuddering little Watson figure for Mycroft. And then Karloff, they go over to his place, has a fake little heart episode. So the guy goes out to the well to get water, finds the fluid that he's using to attract people, to attract the bees to kill people. And here's the part, the whole end is what makes it so good and makes it the original John Wick. Karloff doesn't believe that the police would ever believe any of this. So he just douses the picnic basket that he gives back, that the honey came in back to the guy, but with the odor, somehow he took the odor out of it so that the guy wouldn't recognize the scent. And he goes back and he's killed by his own bees. And then Karloff's doing this great delivery when he suddenly gets this kind of pallor over him as he sits back in his chair and talks about evil and people who love murder. And it's like, oh yeah, it turns back into Mr. Karloff again,
Yeah.
It's fun.
It is a fun little episode though.
And the production is pretty nice. It's
it's not bad. And like you said, Daniel Petrie, even if you were using it to mock me, Daniel Petrie directed it. Daniel Petrie Sr., who, there's a junior who is still a Hollywood guy, I believe. I think he's still around. But he did all sorts of stuff, right? He directed Raising the Sun and all that, and was another one of these guys who came out of TV and kind of forged a career otherwise in features and stuff. But should we go on and talk? I mean, John, do you have anything to add about
it was fun, and again, I appreciated the overacting in certain parts.
You never saw a bee, so
yes, they had to play that.
They literally had to do it all with sound and everything.
Other than the title sequence that gave us one of those stock footage of bees in a hive and stuff like that, which that's fine because honestly, bugs creep me out. So I was happy to do it for this.
Now we get down to what's going on.
Bugs creep me out. I won't deny it. Unlike,
I'm just going to say I like bugs. I'm positive on bugs. I have nothing against them.
You're pro bug. I respect that.
John just
especially bees.
Chicago history, and he doesn't like bugs.
Bees are so important, right? They're not just creepy bugs. What a human-centered point of view. Bees are incredibly important, but let's move on. Let's not get controversial here. Let's not get in a big fight, just like John likes to every week.
I'm so ready. I am so ready. No, honestly, the other two productions we're talking about are Hallmark Hall of Fame productions, and they really were high-end shows back in the day, and still are to this. They've got the Hallmark Channel now, and you got your crappy babysitter gone bad or cheerleader gone nuts or whatever on those Hallmark.
This is a similar story, really, when you put it in those terms, this Joan of Arc story. Yeah, it's the Joan of Arc story. But what a cast! Honestly, obviously you got, there's Boris and Joan played by Julie Harris. Yeah, Julie Harris, Nanny and the Professor fame, among other shows and movies. But a great British actress, and she's very young. And The Haunting.
Oh, shame on me, of course. Yeah. Of course. You got Eli Wallach as the king.
Man.
Which is a real, this is not the kind of role that Eli Wallach was later, kind of typed with. He's very flamboyant in this. And
because most people know him as Mr. Freeze from Batman 66.
Of course, yes.
But I
go,
love
John. What do you have other cards?
Well, regarding Eli Wallach, I love the New York actors because even Al Lewis did Shakespeare. You know what I mean? I mean, literally. So
there wasn't anything.
I love the way you could work in Al Lewis into this. Like,
this is the best episode yet.
Come on, Boris. Herman. Well, come on. You got the Frankenstein connection with the monsters and everything. For God's sake.
If you were playing 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever, now you can get to a lot of people through Al Lewis or Boris.
And look, I'm not judging over here. Like in the last week, I've watched 26 episodes of Car 54. Where are you? I'm not like, I've been thinking about Al Lewis. Like if I had brought him up, I'd have an excuse. But what else? Wait, how did we get to Al Lewis?
Because again, New York, these heavy New York actors doing Shakespeare. Well, and another example from The Leaf, and I got to find the picture. Jack Warden. I loved his role.
Yeah,
Jack Warden very much is acting in a very natural, modern way in the midst of this Bible story. Or Joan of Arc story.
It's not a
religious story, if you will.
Yeah.
God,
it's weird to not see Warren Beatty there with him.
Yes, yeah, it does feel like Warren Beatty should also be there.
Joe Pendleton,
Jack Warden.
But as we've already explained, Warren Beatty at this point would have been over on Dobie Gillis.
Yeah, well, no, not even yet. Like he's got a couple. He's giving the world's worst performance in that. Orson Welles, the night that shook America or whatever it was called.
Right. Oh, that's right.
Remember where he had like he's in one scene. He's one actor out of 5 people in the room, and he still gives the worst line reading imaginable.
He's the card playing frat boy. That's right.
Yes.
That's listening to the broadcast. So, Guy Grip points out, of course, yes, Thriller is close to the outer limits. However,
came a bit later. Yeah,
we were going to acknowledge Thriller, but truly, obviously, Thriller is a film show. We're talking about live performances, so this is pre-Thriller. But sure, absolutely. But anyway, back to Joan, already in progress. What a cast! I mean, my God, Basil Rathbone right there.
Right.
I forget who that is in the center.
I don't know who that is, but
here's
also Denham Elliott.
There he is, boom, right there.
Yep.
Which was amazing.
Young Denham Elliott. Unfortunately, it's like it's a kinescope, but also it's just the version we have available on YouTube is very low res, right? It's not even the kinescope's fault to some extent. Well, so
that's why that's probably the best picture of Jack Warden I was able to do.
Right.
Half the time, his face is reflected.
Yeah, I mean,
the lighting they had, and you really couldn't see his features.
Julie Harris she looks like the Question through half of the thing. Like she's just a big blank white face, But she's giving such a ridiculously big performance that that kind of compensates for it.
I appreciated. Oh, I'm sorry, please, Gabe. I apologize.
Oh no, I was just going to say that it is directly ported over from a Broadway play of the time, right? It was a French play that was then adapted by Lillian Hellman, and it was on Broadway. And so, like, unlike a lot of the stuff we talk about, that's more, it's made to be a TV show. This is more like a filmed play, right? It is very theatrical. The sets are very theatrical. It's not trying to be naturalistic in any way, which is not bad. It's an interesting thing to look at, interesting, thing to check out.
Absolutely.
But it's also, I mean, I think that a lot of it, there are all these amazing performers, but to a certain extent, they're playing at the level of the Broadway production of it, to a large extent, which maybe feels a little much for TV. But just not knocking it. Like, it's a really interesting thing, and Karloff is actually great in it. Karloff modulates his performance for TV really well. I mean, I think so does Denham Elliott, and but
I love that shot of him.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's a Denham Elliott pose right there. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that and as we know, everyone knows Denham Elliott from his famous role in Peter Bogdanovich's Saint Jack, right? That's the movie everybody knows.
I love that movie.
And the
Marcus. From the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies, Marcus.
I'm sort of familiar with that.
Yeah, I know. And Coleman, of course, in Trading Places. the butler.
There you go. Yes, there you go. But I think that for me, which makes it a little tough, it's a movie. It's a Joan of Arc thing, and Julie Harris. It's just she's never been my favorite actor. I mean, I think I talked about this in something we want. Maybe it was I think she's in the feature version of Requiem for a Heavyweight, and like that maybe we talked about. But like
I've forgotten that. Wow.
Yeah, but I don't. There's just something one note about her performances a lot of the time for me. Like she's just always kind of at the same level. And in this, it's up here, and but that's fine. It's just not exactly to my taste, but it's not like I'm not saying she's a bad actor. I just think she just has a style that doesn't connect with me as well.
Yes. As you said, you pointed out the best of The Haunting is probably one of the better.
Yeah, definitely.
More interesting. She does something different.
Yeah. And but yeah,
she also was on that. She was on that NBC supernatural soap opera, and now I'm blanking on the name. It was in the tip of my tongue. Passions.
Okay,
you don't remember Passions?
I remember that name.
It really forgive me, but it carried like the legacy of Dark Shadows in terms of being a soap opera that had horror and supernatural kind of tinges. Not in a good way. Not in a good way at all.
I mean,
but
how could it be bad though? Like what? Like there were vampires and werewolves?
No, it was more witches. It was more witches, and she was like one of the elder witches and stuff.
Crazy! I had no idea about that. All right. Yeah. I mean, so I would, I wish that I could. I mean, in a way, I just wish that we're able to look at a better quality version of this, because it's just like, it feels like not only the Kinescope, it's just the version we see is not so good. So it's hard to recommend for that, but it is interesting. I don't find the Joan of Arc. I find the Joan of Arc story confusing and hard to get behind. But but I mean, I'm not a big fan of conflating.
You just don't like the French.
I don't like the French. But it's I have a hard time with the thing where you're conflating like this sort of like religious faith stuff with nationalism, and like it's just a mess that I'm like, I don't even know. But it is a really interesting production, and it's and an amazing cast. It's just like an amazing cast.
Well, that's why I'm willing to like deal with the blur. Mm-hmm. Knowing, it's like, all right, I mean, looking at it and stuff. All right, I know that's Basil Rathbone. It's not.
Yeah, you can get it. I mean, it's you can follow it and everything. It's not like it's unwatchable. It's just a little rough.
Ironically, another Hallmark production that we're going to talk about right now is on the archive.org. It wasn't on YouTube, but Ian Brill, doing his detective work, was able to find it for us. And that's this production of Arsenic and Old Lace. And as Gabe said earlier, Karloff played the Jonathan character on stage. That's a big deal. And in fact, even in the original production, it was, oh my God, Jonathan always looked like Boris Karloff. And then, of course, it is Boris Karloff. I found it interesting in the film version with Cary Grant. It's Raymond Massey. But don't they make the Karloff joke with Raymond Massey as well?
Yeah, they do. But the whole thing was that Karloff had signed a contract to do it on stage and just wasn't able to get out of that in order to do the film, right?
Wow.
I mean, that's what I read. I don't know if that's correct,
that.
but that's what I read. That he had a long run on Broadway in the stage version and signed on for quite a while. But and then he played it a million other times in like other TV. I think there are other TV versions of him even maybe, but definitely he played it on stage, many times over the years, but like just didn't, the fact that he wasn't in the movie kind of like, it sort of erased him from the history of that in a weird
way. In the 80s or 90s, there was a production here in Chicago, and Jonathan was played by Lou Ferrigno. And in fact, I swear to God.
Did you go see it?
You're going to hell because you're lying.
And
did you see it?
Yes. And the ants, here they are. They make the point. By the way, Mildred Natwick, who I love in everything she did ever, is one of the ants right there on the one on the left, not in center. But
who were the ants in the? It was Alice Ghostly.
No, the big star was Lou.
Okay,
his traveling company, and And the answer, like, he bears a striking resemblance to the Hulk.
Oh my God, I want to throw up. That's like, what? Can you even do that? That's not how it works. Like, plays are supposed to like be you're supposed to fucking like, what?
I'm embarrassed for everybody.
I feel terrible now. This has actually kind of bummed me out.
I believe Lou after that did Neil Simon's Last of the Red Hot Lovers and was just exceptional. No offense, Lou. I love you. I love you, Lou.
No offense. Nothing against Lou Ferrigno. It's just, come on. God.
And who could forget
I just don't know what to do with this information.
His King Lear is spellbinding. Absolutely. So,
yeah. Oh.
Anyway.
All right, now you're being mean. I don't feel like that was appropriate.
Tony Randall is in, the Cary Grant role, the young nephew who is sad to learn that his family is nuts, and also discovers that his sweet dear aunts have been poisoning men and keeping the bodies in the basement. It's a great farce. It's hilarious.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it's a great story. It's kind of one of those, honestly, even with Lou Ferrigno, it's kind of one of those bulletproof.
Will you stop? Wait, we don't have to get.
Even with Lou Ferrigno, what are you talking about, John?
You had already pulled us out, and we were back on track.
Well, I'm saying the story is bulletproof to watch on stage, to watch in the film, to watch on these TV productions, and this is another great production. I was in a rush getting images for some of my other projects.
Did he start to do this shirt rip?
You were in too big of a rush to get a photo of Lou Ferrigno in our place?
I wanted to, like, Tom Bosley is in this cast. It's a Hallmark. It's in the name. I mean, truly, Hallmark really was always this amazing television producer. We mentioned Orson Welles before. They did a production of now I'm blanking, Monty Woolley, The Man Who Came to Dinner.
Okay, yeah.
1969, they did an all-star production of The Man Who Came to Dinner, and Orson Welles,
Ron Ely from Tarzan, and
that's the man in the Jimmy Durante role.
Yes.
No, I think I told you guys the story I heard about Orson in The Man Who Came to Dinner in the Hallmark Playhouse thing. That first of all, it was adapted by Persky and Denoff, the Dick Van Dyke and That Girl writers, to be more contemporary and stuff. And they tell very interesting stories about that production. But anyway, yeah.
Okay, so.
But honestly, no, I would absolutely recommend going to archive.org and watching Man Who Came to Dinner. And again, like we said, the Joan of Arc production is just amazing and worth the blur. I would say that. And then, go ahead.
It may have influenced Joel Coen in his new Macbeth production.
You never know.
Maybe.
But so next,
to get references out.
So next, this is sadly the last episode of Kinescope. Next week on the Corman cast, we will be covering The Beast with a Million Eyes, Roger Corman's early directorial effort.
A lot of people asked me about that, and it wasn't a million eyes. But I love Corman when he described.
But the magic of cinema is we could suggest a million eyes by simply.
That is like one of Gilbert Gottfried's when he interviews Roger Corman, because literally it's like, I heard that you used a tin can as the monster, and it was. Yes, well, we did. We only had a slight budget. It's so great because he literally confirms every crazy story, and it's just so
and he's also kind of a yes-ander, like it's a good way to go if you're doing interviews, I mean, it's the opposite of the way I handle interviews, but a good interview way to go certainly is somebody asks you a question, you just, regardless of whether it's true, you agree, and then start telling a story. I disagree with the premise of every single question I'm asked, but and that's the opposite way to go.
That's just good video right there.
But
that was a good Corman too, by the way.
What's that?
That was very good, Gilbert. I'll give you that.
I heard.
Did he ask him about Carnosaur?
I don't remember. You mean Carnosaur starring Diane Ladd? We'll get there. We're going to get there in the Corman cast. We're just going to go in order, though, so it's going to take a while. Like we're going to go chronological in this thing.
And as usual, everybody wants to talk about the 70s more.
Well, yeah. To bring it back to Karloff, seriously, let's really recommend Target's his final. Was it his final performance?
It wasn't. I mean, he was in the movie called like Crimson Cult and a couple other movies after that.
No,
but,
I really do think Frankenstein 1970 was his final performance.
It's worth watching,
and that's actually
from a curiosity standpoint.
But he would go around telling people that Targets was his final role, though, because it was the last one where he got to do anything, and and he gives a great performance in it, and it's really like. I mean, it's Bogdanovich's first movie. People always think of Last Picture Show as his first movie, but Targets is the first one. And it was like it started as a Corman movie. And it's more than worth, tracking down. Like, especially R.I.P. Bogdanovich, like it's worth going back and checking that out.
He's also a little stop motion mad scientist in Mad Monster Party.
Yes.
Oh, you're right. That's right. Where he plays Dr. Frankenstein. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also wanted to point out a Studio One, and it was driving me nuts. I couldn't remember it, but I did watch it a while ago, and that's this image here, Shadow of a Genius, and that's it's not the best story. It's a kitchen sink kind of family drama about this great man played by Karloff, a Nobel Prize winner, and the reality is he's not the nicest guy. I mean, Time Magazine is doing a Man of the Year profile interview with him in the story and everything. And then you just find out through his wife and his family and other friends that he's kind of a douche. So, but it's interesting seeing him in this kind of more dramatic and professorial academic sort of role. And that's why, I mean, I just always appreciate seeing these things just makes you appreciate him more. I mean, my God, the man, literally only had a handful of lines in Bride of Frankenstein, and then of course no words in Frankenstein itself. And, even going back to, was it the Lost Patrol?
Lost Patrol, Howard Hawks' movie, The Criminal Code. It was kind of like the first thing that he made an impression in. I think he was a great actor. Like, 100%. I really do. I think he brings, I think that it's almost too easy to, to think of a cartoonish idea of Boris Karloff. But when you go back and look at the stuff, especially the stuff that's not, not the cliche Karloff roles, he really delivers over and over again.
He always shows up.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys.
Yep, I really am a Colonel March fan. The episode I saw dealt with scientists that were trying to work out deep space travel, and this is late 50s, early 60s, and a murder happens and stuff, and it's set in France, and it's I'm sure it was a purely British production, but it was I mean I really do I enjoy those, and they're on YouTube. There are dozens of Colonel March episodes you can check out there as well.
I mean, also because I'm the horror appreciating guy, I gotta recommend. Just now, Guy Grip is also recommending what I was just about to say. That Black Sabbath is amazing. He's sort of it's an anthology movie by Mario Bava, and it has like 3 stories, but one of them stars Karloff as well. He's he's sort of the host. He's like kind of a horror host of the thing, but the last, I think it's the last part of it actually stars him, the Vordelak. It's really good. Like, somebody points this out in that documentary that that when he's kind of hosting it in, wearing contemporary clothes and just, whatever, it's like, oh, he's this old man. As soon as he's in the character in the segment that he's in, you don't think about that at all. Like, he has a level of intensity that is really amazing, and it's a very stylized, Mario Bava was a master. He had been a cinematographer, became a director. He's a master of color and vibrant colors, and and that particularly was, I like that movie, but I don't go back and watch every segment of it. I watch the one, with Karloff in it, because it's really good. It's really good.
I'm a big Danger Diabolique fan. Was that Bava as well?
Yes. Yeah, Bava did. Yeah, that was one of the, one of his more adventure-y movies. But yeah. I mean, based on the comic, yeah.
But also just again
great,
from a camera technique standpoint, a lot of things that he did.
Yes, there are a million
like
fake out little effects and stuff like that in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
I go to that well constantly in comic stories saying, by the way, if you've ever watched Danger Elite, and it's like, and then start shoving stills at people.
Right.
Like, let's try to get the money bed in here and the lava scene and all that.
Also, just a brief, because I brought up the question earlier, and and Mario Bava, Blood and Black Lace has it's basically the first giallo movie, and it has the killer is literally somebody wearing a fedora, a trench coat, and has no face. It is the question, and it's the visual look of the question, and basically came out at the exact same time as the Steve Ditko question. I have no idea. I mean, it's a simple idea. I have no idea if they influenced each other or not, one way or the other. But it's striking when you watch the thing, and it's like, holy shit, this is the question in live action.
That's amazing. That sounds great.
I think that we kind of did this. We made we didn't talk about what we're doing next week apart from the Corman cast, so I don't have no idea. But John, do you have an idea?
Yeah, I do have an idea. An early Studio One, and we had talked about this, Gabe, when we were kind of figuring out our list and stuff. It's called The Storm. It stars Marsha Hunt, who became very famous, was a wonderful leading lady, was blacklisted mid-career, and really, thank God, it might still be alive. Was one of those centennial seniors that did reach like 100. I don't know if she's still with us or not currently, but regardless, she's the star. But also, Yul Brynner, The King and I, is the director of this. And when he wasn't acting, he got very involved in early television, and not only did a lot of productions. There aren't many that survived. The Storm happens to be one of them, and it's a suspense story. It's very much like The Stranger. The Loretta Young and Orson Welles? Yeah. So
Welles directed that too. Yeah.
Okay, and Orson Welles directed that. Yeah. This is Yul Brynner again. It's very interesting because he really became very adept at television directing, and even trained a couple of great directors that we could talk about next week when we discuss.
No, there's a lot to talk about there. So I'm on board with this idea. So yes,
good.
That sounds great.
Good. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Excellent.
Okay, cool. All right.
So there you go. So that's next week. Everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Good questions as always. Good comments and everything else. I'm trying to get to the video to close things out. So yeah, The Storm next week, directed by Yul Brynner, Marsha Hunt. Pretty neat stuff, and we'll be discussing it next week here on Kinescope. Until then, take care and adjust those rabbit ears.
Our report details how advertising through television transforms strangers to your product into acquaintances, and acquaintances into friends, and friends into customers. You could almost say, as a result, that television puts into every living room a selling machine.